Bob Murdoch played for the 1971 Stanley Cup champion Montreal. Fulford is moving back solely to the front office, and he has named Murdoch to succeed him on the Blackhawk bench. The naming of the former Calgary assistant leaves vacancies remaining only with the Penguins and Rangers in the NHL.
Former Washington netminder Bob Mason agreed to terms. Now, Mason is 26 years old. He signed today with the Hawks for 4 years and $1 million. That's U.S. bucks. He had turned down earlier a 4-year deal from the Washington Capitals. He had 20 wins last season, only 18 losses, and the Hawks certainly could use him.
NHLers Morris Lukowich and Randy Gregg join newcomers like defenseman Chris Joseph and goalie Jimmy Waite. They're all looking for a spot on the Olympic team, but at the same time, they're keeping their options open.
If I don't stay here with the Olympic team, I have more on the 2 options with Chicago and Junior in Chicoutimi, and I'm only 18 years old, and it will be funny to stay here, but I have 2 other options.
Calgary's new Civic Plaza will be...
Police were involved in a big player trade. That trade became a reality on Thursday, an Inter-Division I involving a 5-player deal between Chicago and Toronto.
The speculation finally ends. Toronto sends 3 players to Chicago: left winger Steve Thomas, right winger Rick Vive, and defenseman Bob McGill. In return, the Blackhawks deal away left winger Al Secord and right winger Ed Olczyk. The deal was likely fueled by Thomas, who demanded a trade after having contract problems. Since signing as a free agent in 1984, he was often considered the Leafs' most underrated player. Last year, he had 35 goals and 27 assists, the team's 3rd highest scorer. Also departing is the 2nd highest scorer, former captain Rick Vive. The 28-year-old has been on and off the trade block for some time now. Vive has been with the Leafs since 1980 when he was acquired from Vancouver. He's the only Leaf who's ever scored 50 goals in a single season, doing it 3 times. Ironically, Vive leaves Toronto when his position on the club looked fairly stable. And then there's Bob McGill. The rugged defenseman was Toronto's 2nd-round draft choice 7 years ago. With only 28 points in his NHL career, McGill is known more for his physical style at the blue line. Chicago also gives up a couple of good players. Al Secord is a physical forward with the talents of a 50-goal scorer. In his 7.5 seasons with the Hawks, Secord has scored 170 goals and added 123 assists. He'll undoubtedly help Toronto, that is, if he can remain healthy. Past few seasons, he's been plagued by injuries that could hamper his contribution. 21-year-old Ed Olczyk was Chicago's first pick in the 1984 entry draft, 3rd overall. Last year, he had only 16 goals and 35 assists, but is still considered a very promising player. Toronto wanted to pick him up a few years ago as compensation for losing Gary Nyland to free agency.
I guess a little bit shocked. I kind of knew something was going to happen, or was sure something was going to happen, but you know, even when it does, you're still shocked. But I'm relieved that it's over with. There's no more rumors going to be floating around, and I guess bottom line is I'm very happy. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, there is a few hard feelings. I've left all my friends, my relatives back here in Markham, and I don't know, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard, but you know, I'm going to have to face it, and I'm looking forward to going to Chicago.
To hockey, Canada's 2nd day in a row. On Friday, the Blackhawks acquired forward Dwayne Sutter from the New York Islanders for future considerations.
Dwayne was the 2nd of the 6 brothers to make it into the NHL. Sutter was the first choice of the Islanders in the 1979 NHL entry draft and was the 17th pick overall. The 27-year-old right winger was a part of 4 consecutive Stanley Cup winners by the Islanders from 1979 through 1983. Primarily a defensive specialist, Sutter is coming off a so-so season. He only collected 31 points last year. Sutter is now entering his 9th NHL campaign. He, along with brother Darryl, should give Chicago some more of the heart that former coach Orville Tessier said the Blackhawks lacked.
Thomas, his problems began when he decided to become a free agent. He took one stance, the Leafs another, and just when it looked like he'd be watching this season from the seats, the trade came.
Things here are, I think, a lot more lax. You don't have as much pressure, I don't think, as I did before. It's been a good camp. There's been a lot of good players out there, and it's really competitive. some of the scrimmages. We had actually a little tournament, and the winning team got prizes and stuff like that. So it's pretty comfortable here.
You can't have too many players of the same personalities or the same type of player. You have to have a chemistry, or you have to have a blend. I know with Rick Vive, Steve Thomas, and Bob McGill, we're a stronger team today on paper and on ice.
The player the trade might work out for best is the forgotten man in the deal, Bob McGill. Since he wasn't blessed with the greatest wheels in the world, his hard-knock style might get him some playing time in Chicago.
You know, I'm ready to do what I have to do to play a lot, and I think that, you know, this rink is good for my style of play, and I have to play physical and play hard, and you know, I'm just going to go out there and show them in the preseason that, you know, I can do the job in Chicago here, and hopefully things will go good from there.
I don't know if things got stale or what. We had a lot of talent, but we sure weren't gelling and we weren't doing it. So they had to do something, and like I said, you never know who it is. You have to give something to get something, and no, I think it's going to be a good trade.
Vive may or may not ever score 50 goals again in one season, but if he does have 50 goals left in him, it's going to be a lot easier for him to score them in this building than it would have been if he'd stayed in Toronto. In Chicago, Mitch Azaria for Sportsline.
Job all by themselves. Here's how the rest of the team stacks up.
Simply put, the Hawks are a team in transition. They have a new coaching staff and a bunch of new players. Their new coach is Bob Murdoch, who was a defenseman with a number of teams, including the Canadiens when they were winning Stanley Cups in the early 70s. For the last 5 years, he's been an assistant in Calgary under Bob Johnson.
We want to play aggressive hockey. We want to play, we want to be able to win the one-on-one battles. We want to get all the loose pucks. We want to play with enthusiasm. We want to play with effort. And I think you're going to see a hard-working team here. We're going to work on improvement.
You know, a new coach comes in, all of a sudden everybody's fighting for the job. What you've done in the past doesn't mean anything. This guy's never seen you play, and you got to go out there and, you know, show him, hey, I want to, you know, win my spot type of thing. But, you know, he comes in and he does everything his way. It's a little different than maybe what we've been doing it, but it takes a few weeks to learn his systems.
And perhaps that's why the scrimmages have been such battles, because very few jobs are assured.
We had a red-white game on Saturday, and it was pretty chippy and pretty aggressive, and that's always a good sign.
I was on Toronto when Chicago used to blow us out all the time. They used to blow everyone out. They won the league one year by 30 points or something, and you know, they were so far ahead of everybody else, it wasn't funny, but they kind of stayed with the same players, and everyone else made changes, and everyone else started climbing that ladder. And I think last year it caught up with them, and maybe the year before it just started to catch up with them, but definitely last year. And we made some changes, and now maybe we can start climbing the ladder too.
Many people have suggested that without Secor and Olczyk, this is going to be a less aggressive Chicago team. But in fact, with the deals that the Blackhawks have made in the off-season, this is going to be a tough, tough Blackhawk team.
Hockey is basically one-on-one battles and loose pucks, and we have to make the Chicago Blackhawks a better team by being able to win those one-on-one battles and the loose pucks. And once we get to that point, we'll be an improved team. And I think the biggest acquisition might be Dwayne Sutter. He's been on 4 Stanley Cup winners. He's a proven winner. He's a proven leader, and that's something the Blackhawks apparently lacked, you know, before we got here. So I'm looking for Dwayne Sutter to teach some of our younger guys what it takes to win.
If there's going to be one big surprise coming out of this camp, his name is Jimmy Waite. He was the Hawks' first-round pick in June, and although he's only 18, he gets this kind of praise.
He's got to make this club. It's the best goalie. I like him.
Because the Hawks have made so many changes, expect them to get off to a rocky start. But if the talent ever gels and Jimmy Waite can play the way he looks like he can, they will get tougher and tougher as the season goes on. In Chicago, Mitch Azaria for Sportsline.
More than old mates, though, that night. They'll have to get over the vaunted Chicago Stadium as well. More now from Mitch Azaria.
This is the Chicago Stadium, perhaps one of the most interesting buildings in the National Hockey League. Built in 1929, it's in a neighborhood where you keep one hand on your heart and the other on your wallet. It's housed a Republican and a Democratic National Convention. It's witnessed the great hockey players like Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita. But perhaps the most interesting story are the fans and the noise they make inside.
And what is most remarkable is this is just an exhibition game. The organ that makes all the noise is a Barton. At full volume, it would shatter all the glass in the building. But it is the fans that really make the difference. The last cup the Blackhawks won was in 1961 when the Golden Jet, Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita, were exciting the fans. Maybe it's the hunger for those bygone days that make this crowd so unruly.
I love it. I love it. I know as an opposing coach, just standing on that bench and listening to the crowd, it sends chills up your back, you know, so I think it's good. The Blackhawks, I think, in all their history, have only had 3 losing seasons at home, and one of the reasons, I believe, is the crowd. The crowd's almost intimidating. You know, they can get behind this club and really push them and help them.
Well, Murdoch isn't completely right. The Blackhawks, since their inception in 1926, have had 15 losing seasons at home. But the rookie coach will be happy to know they haven't had a losing season in a stadium since 1958. Now, that's remarkable.
It's definitely, without a question, the loudest crowd in the National Hockey League. I know the guys, new guys we have on our team, they're really looking forward to playing here. On the end that the fans are cheering for, not booing. That's always a plus. I think they're usually good for a couple of goals a game. But you know, they can get mad at you too. They can turn on you, and I don't blame them. They're paying the money to watch us, so if we don't give an effort, they got the right to let us know.
One of the most interesting historical footnotes about the Chicago Stadium took place in 1932. That was the year that the NFL was forced to play its championship game inside the stadium. The weather was so bad here in Chicago that they had to transform the ice surface into an 80-yard football field. Chicago, by the way, won the game. In Chicago, Mitch Azaria for Sportsline.
In Chicago, the Hawks have the welcome mat out to some new names. They start behind the bench with Bob Murdoch as the new coach. He should supply the Hawks with a solid defensive system and work ethic this team has lacked for too long. It'll be interesting to see how the ex-Leafs do here. Look for Steve Thomas to show a progression with his goal total. Bob Mason signed as a free agent and will be the #1 goalie. They added Dwayne Sutter from the Islanders and should show up for the 3rd period this year, enough times to take 3rd place in this division.
In Chicago, the wind has blown in half a new roster to join new head coach Bob Murdoch, most notably former 50-goal scorer Rick Vive, who comes to Lake Michigan along with sniper Steve Thomas. While in Toronto, the Leafs have added Al Secord from the Blackhawks and Dave Semenko to beef up their lineup. And it's these 2 clubs that'll kick off the season Thursday in Chicago, Game 1 of the Chuck Norris division in the NHL. In Philadelphia, Ed Olczyk was born and raised in Chicago. He dreamed of playing in a Blackhawks uniform. Now, the prodigal son is returning home, but he won't be in a Blackhawks uniform. Instead, he'll be wearing blue and white. And of course, he doesn't expect the welcome mat to be rolled out.
It's going to be mixed emotions. I'm sure some people will cheer. My real close friends and the people that didn't like me or, you know, because I'm with the Leafs, are going to boo me. And I'm sure go out there, get a few hits, hopefully pot a few goals, and the fans will boo me. And it's something I've been used to because they booed me last year, so I'll feel right back at home in Chicago. So it's right now I really don't have any feelings. I'm not nervous. I'm real happy. I'm excited, and I think that's really what's going to make it a great year.
Al Secord, on the other hand, just wants to stay healthy. And if he can, Al figures there'll be no problem justifying the trade that brought him and Olczyk to Toronto.
Well, I think if Eddie and I are on our game, that we could score 60 goals between us, and plus add other things to the game, you know, with with the work ethic and you know, a little bit of toughness. And Eddie's an excellent penalty killer, so you know, those combination of things I think is going to help this hockey club, and it's going to help this team, you know, in the long run.
So the question remains, who got the better of the deal, Chicago or Toronto? We'll start getting some of the answers tonight. And in return, Chicago got Bob McGill, Rick Vive, and Steve Thomas. All 3 figured they had no more future in Toronto, especially Thomas, who was looking for that very big pay raise.
Check by Steve Thomas. When it came time to leave, Steve Thomas didn't look back. He's been in Chicago a month. He's happy playing for the Blackhawks and is glad the stress he found in Toronto is behind him.
I don't think there's as much pressure as there was in Toronto, being